Welcome to Keeping Up at the Capitol with Senator Tom Casperson. This program comes to you each month from Lansing to keep you informed on issues and events important to northern Michigan. Today's guests are State Senators Darwin Booher of Everett, Howard Walker of Traverse City, Joe Hune of Hamburg, and Representatives Ed McBroom of Vulcan and Greg MacMaster of Keewaydin. Now, here's Senator Tom Casperson.
I want to welcome our viewers to a special edition of What's Up in the Capitol. And two of the guests I have today are Representative Ed McBroom and Senator Howard Walker.
Morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
We have a little bit to talk about. You talk a lot about pork and politics, but this one here is the real deal. So let's get started. The Department of Natural Resources has decided that some pigs in Michigan are invasive. And maybe, Ed, you've been involved in this from day one. It was your legislation trying to stop what was happening. Maybe explain to our viewers what's gone on here.
Well, it's, yeah, I was the chief sponsor of the legislation on the House side. And, you know, many years now the department has been trying to stop high fence hunting in the state of Michigan and been rebuffed by the legislature that both of you were serving in at different times in the last decade. At this point, they've tried to utilize and are so far being successful in utilizing the Invasive Species Act by somehow insisting that there's two different species of pigs out there and that this one species of pig is too dangerous, too crazy, too vicious to handle. And so they've called it another species. They've said that it's outlawed, and now they're after the places that not just sell hunts, but the places that raise pigs and places that are using those same breeds of pigs, not species, on their own farming operations. And you know, this is for the department now to insist that, well, we've simply declared this breed of pigs, and they say it's a species, but a breed of pigs to be illegal, and now we can come to your farm or your ranch and just take them. And we don't have to give you any compensation for that. It flies in the face of our tradition of private property rights and you know, due process and just compensation for private property that's being taken by the government. And they've, you know, tried to wash this over by saying, well, we gave you 6 months to sell them off legally, and you know that shouldn't have been a problem. But they've offered no new ability to make money for your family. You're set up to raise these pigs, and now all of a sudden, well, we left you your land, go ahead, do something else on it. And as a farmer who got milk cows, you know, if the government just said, well, we're banning milk cows, or at least one breed of milk cows, well, just do something else. Build race cars. We don't care. You know, it's just really very insulting to our sense of justice and to private property rights.
Senator, I think the representative brought up something pretty interesting, and that is the personal property right aspect of this thing. Do you see maybe a precedent being set here and possibly where this could lead?
Well, let me back up just a little bit and say that Representative McBroom's bill has passed the House and it's sitting in the Senate, and there's a number of us that are supportive in the Senate of his bill. We feel that these farmers and these ranchers should be able to raise these hogs in the same manner that the pork producers are raising their hogs. And that does get to your private property rights. They're raising hogs on their farms downstate or wherever it might be. Those hogs escape also and turn feral. So why is the department picking on basically another breed of hog, which, as I understand, DNA-wise is almost identical to the pork producers' hogs? Those pork producers' hogs get out, cause crop damage, become feral in the wild, and can also catch diseases. So why is the department discriminating against these ranchers whose hogs may have hair on them as opposed to the pink hogs? And I think that we need to pass that bill in the Senate, and special interests have been very successful in, I think, confusing the issue, and we need to continue educating our colleagues there.
Is there a connection to, do you sense a connection? You mentioned it earlier, Ed, to the high fencing. It seems like I was involved in the House at the time when we did that. I had the bill actually that stopped them from for shutting down the high fences with the deer and elk. There is a connection here. It's hard to say and pinpoint and prove that's exactly what's going on, but it does seem like a connection. When it came to the high fencing, that became the problem, and because these were used in a sport versus just producing it for like a farmer normally would. In some cases, they even there they are producing as a farmer, but they're using those animals behind high fences, and it seems like there's a theme there. Do you think there's anything to that? Do you believe there's anything to that?
Yeah, I think absolutely that it was initially the department's intent to simply end that kind of practice, and I don't think any of us, including them, really fully realize the scope of these breeds of pigs being used in other operations, and the attempt to, limit what we could call captive hunting or synthesized hunting experience. Across the country, there's these ranches that have cropped up, and some of them have been managed in a very poor way, in a way that's not been good. And that's why my bill said if we can set up good ground game rules for these places and strict fencing guidelines and disease testing protocols and identification protocols and transportation protocols, my bill offered to do all of those things so that we could see if there's a way to make it work, because Canada and many other states have found a way to make it work successfully. But this prejudice against that kind of operation and against that kind of hunting experience is very clear in this attempt. But now it's bled over into so many other venues as well.
What can be done to correct it? We're running out of time, so if you could just wrap us up real quick, Howard. What do you think we should be doing here to correct this?
I think that our colleagues in the Senate need a better understanding of the controls that can be put in place to control the animals within the fences. We also have a couple of court cases that are moving through the system. I believe that these ranchers are going to prevail in the courts. I think, like you said, there's a private property rights issue that they can rely on. Possibly right to farm could provide them with some protections. And I hope that if they prevail in court, that it will help educate our colleagues, and maybe we can get some statutory language in place that will protect these ranches and farms.
Just for our viewers, so we understand the fact that this started through an order where a department within our government signed an order, and this was the previous administration. The former director of the department signed an order that made these animals invasive, and more or less seemed to challenge the legislature to say, if you can beat my order if you can, and then the race was on.
And you're right, that's another way it could change, is the department could reverse the order.
Absolutely. We're coming to the end of this segment, and in the next segment we're going to bring up Representative MacMaster and Senator Booher and talk further on this issue. So we'll be back shortly.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Opening presents can be fun, but are more toys really what your child needs? Instead, you can give a gift for your child's or grandchild's future. Start a college savings account with the Michigan Education Savings Program. It's something they'll use and appreciate for a lifetime. The Michigan Education Savings Program. Start your child's future today. Learn how at misaves.com.
I want to welcome back our viewers to the next segment, and we're discussing a lot of hogwash here, but it's an important issue, and we're going to get started. I've got my guests to my left, Greg MacMaster, Representative MacMaster, and Senator Darwin Booher. Welcome.
Good morning, Tom.
Let's get started. We've talked about the kind of the foundation that was laid that caused what's happening to us right now with this one industry we're discussing, the ranchers with the pigs. How about the economic impact this is going to have at a time when we're trying to grow Michigan and bring them back? Agritourism is one of the things that we believe is something that's a strong foundation to be built. I know, Representative, you've been dealing with some of this and you're starting to see some of the results of this order that was put in place by the department. Could you share that with us?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. In Sheboygan County, where we've already had a detriment to the economy with the closing of Sheboygan Hospital, losing over 400 employees that helped provide $5.6 million of economic revenue. Now with that shut down, we're coupled with the closing or possible closing of a meat factory that relies almost solely on Renegade Ranch for the processing of that meat. That too also employs people, not to mention the ranch alone. So you have more hits to an economy in Sheboygan County where the unemployment rate is going to be skyrocketing almost to the upper teens, if not low 20% range.
Darwin, you too, in your area, you're aware of what's been going on here, and you've got ranchers. I visited one of them, you did, what just recently happened. Maybe you could share that with us.
Yes, we just, DNR just went on a ranch there in Kalkaska County, and the owner had already proceeded to eliminate all his pigs. But
now, can you explain for the viewers why the owner was so concerned that he did that? He eliminated his pigs. What was he facing if he didn't?
Well, you have two options when they come there. If they find the pigs, you're either going to jail or you're going to lose them all right then. And fines, huge fines. And I'm not sure if it was $20,000 a day or $20,000 an animal, but it's a huge fine. So rather than run that risk, I mean, obviously, those are your options, and that's not good. So he chose to do that. Yeah. But in my area, the 11 counties in northwestern central part of the state, the order was looking at the ranches, but it includes 2,009 small farmers. The small farmers are what I grew up with. I can't imagine the DNR walking onto my farm or my father's farm and telling us we have to get rid of our Holsteins and keep our Jerseys, or something like that. This is an invasion of my rights, and I see it that way. I say, no, it is a Department of Agriculture issue. They are behind the fence. That's who should be in charge of this. Agriculture is not in charge of the domestic animals in behind the fence. That's DNR. Agriculture in the state has the feral swine piece of the issue, and they're working on that. So it's just reversed of the way I see what should be happening in this particular case. Agriculture. The economy is driven in Michigan by agriculture and growing, and yet we put out orders like this could put as many as 2,000 farmers out, and I have a real concern with that.
Hey, I heard, and I've been hearing that you know, us talking about this as we're doing is probably not the best thing. We're kind of ginning this thing up, and we need to just let it go away and take its course. Yet, when I was involved in this, watching this unfold, I'd gone to some Natural Resource Commission meetings. I went to one in Escanaba and watched the debate there when they were discussing it. And you know, again, I've been told that we're kind of ginning this up and maybe exaggerating a little bit what's going on here and maybe the effect of it. Yet I recall the department talking to us about huge numbers of animals that are out in the wild, just huge numbers. And I'll give you a comparison of why I think something's wrong here. In the Upper Peninsula, we've had a huge problem in the last 5 to 10 years now with wolves. We have too many wolves. They're taking our livestock. We've had some incidents with wolves with humans where it's been touch and go. And now we're seeing wolves quite a bit. At the end of the day, the numbers the DNR shares with us about wolves is very low, that there's not that many wolves out there. Yet when it comes to the pigs, it was in the thousands. And I haven't seen a pig in the wild. And I know they're out there, but there's something not right here. Have you run into that?
Yeah, let me touch on that. Because of the wolves in the Upper Peninsula, there was even a documented case where there was a sign posted because of wolf population and the disease they spread, it tainted the water. Now, the DNR recognizes that, and they promoted that on their website, indicating do not drink from the streams. That shows that they're very watchful of the wolf population and that they are spreading disease, the same disease that is now in the pigs. I don't have a problem with them exterminating the feral hogs that are running wild. Let's take care of those. However, because of the ISO being as broad as it is, they asserted their own authority and crossed that line, that fence, if you will, and assumed control of all pigs that are also penned in. And that falls under the Animal Husbandry Act, which to me is a violation of what was done at the federal side.
Yeah. Didn't this gin it up and make it very difficult for us as legislators to deal with this, because people were stepping back almost in fear of what they were hearing, and yet I just believe reality wasn't the case, and so that's why I think we need to talk about this and let people know what was going on. Is that
well,
fair
Tom, it's not us that's ginning it up. It was ginned up by those who brought the issue forth that Humphreys, our director of DNR, would issue such an order. I have no issue with the feral swine, as a good representative said. But when I talk to the senators in Florida, when I talk to the senators in Texas, where you have a real feral swine issue, they didn't make them invasive species. And they're still shipping their hogs out of those states. Our pork producers are worried about this disease getting into the pork, and I would be too. I'm concerned about it. But if in fact you have ever had a case, then we should be doing elimination of a lot more animals than just these that are domestic behind the fences of our small farms.
This to me is a situation where we've taken, and our viewers need to know this, these farmers started with a legal operation. This was not illegal in Michigan, and they built these businesses up through the years trying to make them go, and through the stroke of a pen, they were told you are invasive and you will be put out of business with your animals. And that to me is the biggest problem we've got here. We're literally taking a Michigan business and telling them through a signed order from a director of a department, not an elected official, from a department head, telling them we will no longer allow you to do business in Michigan. And I think we need to remove the order, and then we can come back legislatively. Is that a fair statement?
That's fair in my eyes, that we should rescind that order and let this thing settle in and let those court cases proceed through. But don't scare the small farmers in Michigan that tomorrow morning somebody walks onto my farm and tells me I go to jail or I'm penalized. That should happen.
Well, I want to thank you for this segment. Representative MacMaster, thank you. Representative, our Senator, excuse me, Darwin Booher, thank you. And we're going to move on to the next segment and talk a little bit more about this issue.
Thank you.
Water. We take our showers with it. We make our coffee with it. But we rarely tap its true potential and just let it be itself. Flowing freely into clean lakes, clear streams, and along more freshwater coastline than any other state in the country. Come realize water's true potential. Dive in to the waters of pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org. Let's take a walk. Down paths of green star stone, over dunes of Kalkaska sand, across bridges, up boulevards, along grand verandas, through the priceless and the timeless. Let's walk out of the world as we know it and into the world we don't. A new trailhead awaits. Where it leads is pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org.
I want to welcome you back to this segment and welcome back our guests. And we have a new guest with us. Senator Joe Hune's with us. Ed McBroom is back, representative, and Senator Darwin Booher. I'd like to talk a little bit, let's get going on the idea of up to this point, they had not been successful, meaning the department has not been successful. And what I mean by that is we've talked a little bit in the other segments about how this seems to have a connection or tie to high fencing and the idea of game animals and things like that. And I know the department's tried different ways through the years because they apparently, I believe, do not like these high fences. This was another attempt a different way. And unfortunately, it appears they've had some success here. Maybe, Joe, you could weigh in this. You and I were back in the days when they were going after the cervid farms and didn't feel they should be around. And they're always using the theme of disease. Maybe you could kind of hit on that.
It seems like that's a perfect scapegoat issue to go ahead and push their agenda. Oh, it's always the disease issue. These animals are going to get out and run rampant through the communities, which is nothing but hogwash and a farce generally. It's just, again, a method for the DNR to keep pushing for their perspective. And I think the scary thing is, all in all, if you look from the extreme animal activist perspective, they would love to eliminate animal ownership altogether, whether it's your canary in your house or your puppy that you just purchased the other day. All in all, I think the main objective for many animal activists in the end is to eliminate animal ownership altogether. And this is just a good first step for them to put a feather in their cap and count this as a success.
You have not weighed in on the other segments, but if you could, just talk to us a little bit about your thoughts about this whole idea of personal property rights and people that have started a small business raising these animals. And as we've talked about earlier, they did nothing illegal. It was always legal what they did as far as their ability or their choice to do this. It was simply through the stroke of a pen by the department that made them illegal. The effective date, I believe, was April 1st. After April 1st, if there was no legislative action, they would then become illegal, felons, literally, if they were to push this issue. Maybe you could share your thoughts on that.
And if you, yeah, certainly, it is absolutely ludicrous for me to think that we got to this point in terms of government coming on to the farm that I own and telling me which breed of hog I can and cannot raise. And if I have a breed of hog that the government doesn't like, then they can call me a felon. And in fact, if you really look at the invasive species law that we have on the books, if you own any product, if you are in possession of any product of one of these animals, you may also face felony charges as well. So if I'm actually to be in pure compliance of the law, I eliminate all of my animals. I go out and shoot those piglets that the Department of Natural Resources is demanding that I do, and I ultimately have them in the freezer. I can ultimately face felony charges as well. It's absolute lunacy. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that we've got to the point where government is telling me which breed of pig I can and cannot raise. And you probably have mentioned it already, but the vagueness in the characteristics that the Department of Natural Resources has out there to determine if your pig is an invasive species or not is absolutely ridiculous. If your pig has a straight or a curly tail, you could face felony charges because your pig may be invasive. If your pig has erect, folded, or floppy ears, you may face felony charges because your pig may be an invasive species. And if the color of the hair at the end is lighter in color than the base of the hair, so when you pluck out a hair from that hog and it's lighter at the end, whether it was out in the sun, you raised it on pasture out in the sun all summer long, is regardless, you may face felony charges because that pig may be an invasive species. And the Department of Natural Resources put out an entire list of different characteristics that they could ultimately determine your hog is an invasive species. And the interesting thing is the list, your animal only needs to meet one or more of the qualifications. So again, a straight or curly tail, you may face felony charges and your pig is an invasive species. Absolutely ridiculous.
Senator Booher, we were asked a while back, why would we stand up and make an issue out of this? It's kind of been settled. We didn't get the legislation passed. There was enough fear, I think, ginned up that really pulled some people back because that order was facing us. Why stay in the fight? Why are you staying in the fight?
Yeah. I think it's just the invasive species order was not clear enough. It was broad, and we should have tightened that order up if, in fact, we were going to make this thing work and not have us. But the way it's set up, it is too broad. It entails too many of my farmers, too many people's rights in the state of Michigan. I believe that government, and this was not a legislative law, this was an order by someone, the director of DNR, coming down and saying, I can shut down your farm. That's a step too far as I'm concerned. The other side of it is, I want agriculture. I want agriculture to take charge of this issue. This is, the agriculture in their budget this year has put no money in it at all for this purpose. How serious is this to our ag product in the state of Michigan? It's a DNR issue with our game ranches. It affects all of us. I stay in it because of those things. Give me agriculture, get me behind the fences, let my farmers work with the ag, if that's the case. But there's not a penny put in the budget for next year for the fight against that. Only thing, we'll have a report this fall, Department of Ag will, on the feral swine side, not with the domestic animals, not with the invasive species order. Only thing they're working on is feral swine.
Ed, so our viewers understand, if I'm the normal pig farmer, I think that most people think about, they think of these little pink pigs running around, maybe a white one. They run around and get in the mud.
The type we see at the county fair.
The type you see at the fair. If I'm a normal what I guess the DNR would deem to be a normal pig farmer, and my fence breaks down in a corner of the field somewhere, and those little pink piggies get out of that fence. Now the department looks at me as a normal pig farmer, no problem with you. If that pig or those pigs get out of that fence and they stay out in the wild, are they then a feral swine?
In the technical sense, yes, they are. And that's the real issue, is where are the feral pigs in Michigan coming from? Are they from people bringing pigs into Michigan and dumping them? Yes. Are they from your traditional county fair pigs getting loose? Yes. Are they from some game ranches that have bad practices? Yes. Let's deal with the feral pig issue. Let's attack that. Let's make sure that we're dealing with that issue. And we did. We passed the shoot on sight law. But what's constantly being brought up is, oh, the game ranches are the only villain here, and their pigs are always diseased, and their pigs are always dangerous, and they're pigs like the other pigs. And technically they're being tested right now more for disease than anybody else. And so to just generally say, oh, they're automatically diseased because they have tusks or brown hair or black hair, is totally a misconception.
We're winding it down. Joe, maybe you could just share with the viewers real quick what you think the residents of the state should be aware of, and maybe what they could do to help.
Certainly you can contact the Department of Natural Resources, although I don't know, I suspect that probably will fall on deaf ears, but certainly get a hold of the governor's office, Governor Rick Snyder. You can find all of his contact information online. Urge him to do everything he can to overturn this invasive species order. Certainly the legislators here at the table are on the side of private property rights and are on the side of getting government out of the way. Again, contact Governor Rick Snyder's office and urge him to do everything he can to overturn this invasive species order.
Very good. Thank you for coming in and doing this program with us. We appreciate that, and thank my viewers for keeping up with what's going on at the Capitol. Thank you.